Welcome to Own the Chaos. The stock market is crazy and chaotic.
And crash. You son of a... God. Hold on. Pause.
Brad and Fat Man Zoom are here to help you own it.
They were targeting Wall Street when they should have been targeting Capitol Hill. They should have been targeting DC. This is the same thing, and this is what people keep missing.
Taking it to the suits, being relatable and hilarious.
You bought GameStop at 400, didn't you? To the moon, baby, to the moon.
Get ready to own the chaos in 3, 2, 1.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Chaos. My name is Brad. The stock market is crazy and chaotic. We made it our mission to help you guys own it. What's up, everybody? We have not a too exciting week coming up. However, there is some stuff to talk about. One of them being Tesla, of course, as you saw in the title. And we're going to get into that because I know a lot of you guys are kind of curious as to what to expect for Tesla, especially after its monster run over the last couple of weeks. Is it time to be a little bit concerned considering the numbers that we saw from their sales, especially with some of the other things that are going on with Tesla as far as shutdowns are concerned? We're going to get into all of that tonight. But first, before I do, of course, everybody, let me hit you up with the starting five. Joe Tech, D. Benner, what's up? Eric Brands, Tiger's Edge, Streams you guys are our starting five. Thanks so much for showing up early. If you guys missed the starting five, of course, make sure you hit that notification bell, subscribe, of course, as well. And then on your way in, if you wouldn't mind hitting that thumbs up to show support for the stream, I certainly would appreciate it. But what's up, everybody? How's everybody going? How's everybody doing? It's yeah, it's been interesting, to kind of see how Tesla's been shaping up here. We're gonna talk about that as well, but I wanted to kind of check in with some of the comments that are already being made here. One of them being John Liu. I think that there is some confusion. So he thought they beat expectations. So I cross-referenced two sources. One of them being the Motley Fool. They took an average of all of the analyst expectations, which was around 317,000. Was that expectation for sales. Then there was also Wedbush's. So Dan Ives, if you guys know who Dan Ives is, he is a major Tesla bull, one of the bigger ones. Hitting in his expectations was around 312. Tesla came in at 310,000 in sales. And so one of the big bulls in with the expectations on Tesla, even missed his expectations. We had calls for deliveries as high as 319. So it seems to me all the data and where I'm getting these numbers from seems to be that Tesla actually missed sales. Now, this could potentially spell some trouble for the stock coming tomorrow, but we'll see how that shakes out. Let me get it to some of the other, and I'll give you my thoughts in just a minute as well, and some tidbits information that I think are worth taking a look at. John making the calls play, the options play here, said I sold Tesla 1,000 to 1,100 weekly call spread, hoping to consolidate before the move higher. I think that's you might be on to something there. Alex says to just buy it. We all know how Shane feels about it. D Karma has some really good things to say. Delivery report, grand opening Giga, meaning the Berlin opening, early earnings announcement for 420. Shocker. I mean, that's just Elon's MO right there. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll get into some of this. So what's the deal here? As I had mentioned before, Tesla came in light on sales, so they missed sales expectations. Depending on where you get your numbers from, it seems like they missed no matter what. Came in at 310,000. Now, that is still a monster number, okay? Let's be clear. It's still impressive considering the times that we're in with chip shortages and shortages on natural resources in general. That's still a very impressive number. Let me just read this off to you. Tesla delivered approximately 310,000 vehicles in Q1. This record quarterly figure is up from about 309,000 in the fourth quarter of 2021, but represents a staggering year-over-year growth of 68%. The figure also notably puts Tesla's trailing 12-month figures at a figure above 1 million of about 1,061,000 for the first time. That is still an amazing number. This is coming from a trailing 12-month deliveries of approximately 596,000 just 1 year ago. Amazing growth. Okay. So just because the expectations weren't there, that's still amazing growth. And like I said, given the time that we're in, I mean, we're seeing some of the legacy companies really struggle. We saw Ford announce that they were shutting down the Mach-E plant for the time being, until they can get some of their supply chain issues sorted out. So there's definitely cause for concern there as far as that, as far as all that goes. But I think so far, just given the way that Tesla's been growing, if you compare it to the rest of the market and the rest of the EV sector, all their other competitors are really struggling, where it's like Tesla's kind of struggling, right? Like it's not like Tesla's lumped in with the rest of them. Like it's bad for Tesla, it's awful for everybody else, right? And Elon spoke to this earlier, talking about some of the supply chain constraints that they've had. So this number is still pretty incredible. This is, again, I'm reading off the Motley Fool. The deliveries in the quarter consisted of 295,000 for the Model 3 and Y vehicles combined, and 14,000 for the Model S and X vehicles. So 95% of the sales came from the Model 3 and the Model Y. Remember, we were talking about how Elon was making claims that the Model Y could outsell the Toyota Camry, the number one selling car, or I'm sorry, the Toyota Corolla, the number one selling car. It's a Camry or the Corolla, the number one selling car in the world. And so that's still, I think, a very tall feat, especially given the issues that they're dealing with. But that's a pretty impressive number. Model 3 and Y deliveries were slightly down sequentially, while Model S and X deliveries were up 25% over that same time frame. And as I had mentioned, the expectations were missed. 312 to 317,000 were kind of the majority of the consensus, depending on where you get your info from. I think that this is going to be, I think some investors are going to take this by surprise. I truly believe that. So I think that there's going to be a potential sell-off on Monday. I'm looking at futures right now. Futures are down just slightly, but might as well be flat. We also have some interesting things on the economic calendar that we're going to get into in a little bit later that may impact Tesla stock as well. But if we're just going off of sales miss alone, I think that there's going to be an opportunity here. And you look at this, right? I mean, we're starting to get heated up on Tesla as is anyway. So could we use a healthy pullback, and could this be the reason? I think so. I think that there's certainly potential for this. We look at the chart, and it has gotten quite hot. We're sitting here at 68 on RSI. It started to pull back a little bit over the last couple of days, but there certainly stands a reason that we could see this pull back on this trend line here at around 1014. I would be surprised if it fell below 1,000, but I wouldn't be, I guess, absolutely shocked if it did. We've seen how volatile Tesla can be. I mean, there's nothing saying that it can't come back down to the 950s. Right? We draw a support line here at around 950 on the dot. You can see how that acted as a resistance previously before blasting through it over the last couple of weeks. So I think, technically speaking, there's a possibility where we see this pull back and meet these levels. I think the first stop is going to be along this trend line somewhere. But if it doesn't, then perhaps that 950 mark could be the area. And that, for me, is where I would certainly look to consider buying, if it were me. But I think that that's going to be something to look for. Now, obviously, we're seeing this potential miss being a bad catalyst for them. Not only were they missing on sales, you also have China. The Shanghai factory also is still shut down. So if you guys haven't been keeping track of this, Shanghai is shutting down the entire country, really. China is shutting down the entire country. Some of the major some of the major cities in China have shut down, almost to levels that we haven't seen since COVID broke out. So that's pretty significant. The Shanghai factory is going to be shut down yet again on Monday. I don't think there's really any indication as to when they're going to open back up. And so that's going to certainly have an impact. Now, what softens this impact, right, is the fact that the Gigafactory in Berlin is open. And this could continue to help them. But you have investors that are taking that into account already. So does this impact earnings moving forward? I think that there's certainly something to consider there. Look, there's nothing more that I would love to do for you guys than be bullish as hell on Tesla. But I think these are questions that are worth raising, right? We always try to find the bull and bear cases in anything that we're investing in. And it's really important to know and to find areas within your theory or your investment plan to poke holes in it. You want to find those weaknesses and try to exploit them to see if it's going to impact your portfolio at all or your holdings at all. And I think this is certainly a real thing that you need to consider. I mean, we're looking at Tesla. The statistics are here that are their price of sales is at 22 times sales. Their price, the PE, the forward PE is at 103 times next year's earnings. That's still ridiculously expensive. And look, I know there's a lot of other things going on with Tesla that we should be paying attention to other than just vehicle sales. But when you consider the fact that Tesla has also halted production on the solar side of things, there's not much else to go off of in the here and now. When we look at the here and now, there's not much else to go off of other than auto sales. I mean, we're seeing, things kind of shut down as far as Tesla is concerned on the solar side, which a lot of people were making claims about. We have the all out Tesla bulls talking about how, well, they got so many other things. It's not just a car company, and they got robotics and autonomous driving, and then solar. But yes, okay, none of that is profitable except for the auto sales part of it. And I think that that's really an important thing to consider as well. So while we do have the Berlin factory that's open, and also the Texas factory as well. So the plant in Texas, I had those numbers, the expectation here. Maybe I didn't. I thought I did. But we could be seeing, oh yeah, here we go. We could be seeing the Tesla plant or the Texas plant open up before the end of this year. And maybe we could start having the Cybertruck conversation. So that could certainly create some noise, and we could see some really sharp moves up on Tesla. Also, they come out and talk about whatever the split's going to be. Let me know in the comments what you guys think the split should be. As far as Tesla's concerned, do you think that we should see another 10-to-1 split? Stock closed at $1,084.59 on Friday. Should we see a 10-to-1 split? Should Tesla be $100 a share? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. But you have those catalysts as well that could certainly make the strong moves. And so, I think there's certainly some risk here. We have some interesting comments. D. Karma says, I believe Monday is the main big day for Tesla in the entire history. We could see all-time highs. I don't know, man. I would love it if that happened. I would love it if that happened. I just don't know if that takes place when they're missing sales expectations, right? That usually doesn't just bring about a major move, especially, you have a lot of headwinds here. We just got done talking about the Shanghai shutdown. There's a lot to consider here. Just to give you more info on that. So Tesla notified workers and suppliers. Let me bring this back up. Here we go. They notify workers and suppliers that production at a Shanghai factory will not resume on Monday as it hoped, according to internal notice shared with Reuters. This is from Reuters. They reported earlier on Sunday that the U.S. automaker aimed to resume production on Monday, citing two sources, as it expected to see first batch of workers released from a lockdown the city imposed. Combat. By the way, have you seen the photos? Like, it's a ghost town in Shanghai, which is wild to see. Never thought I would have seen that again during this time. I thought we were past that, but we know how China is, and they're just going to continue to do their thing. The current stoppage marks one of the longest suspensions since the factory started in production in late 2019. Tesla manufactures 6,000 Model 3s and a 10,000 Model Ys per week in the Shanghai factory. And so that's a significant impact, right? That's no small amount of cars that are being manufactured. Again, I do want to emphasize that the Berlin factory is certainly going to help them here, because they were building those cars in Shanghai, not just for the Asian market, but also for Europe, right? It was much easier to ship vehicles from Shanghai to the rest of Europe rather than shipping them from the West Coast all the way over to Europe. So that certainly helps them on the European side, but doesn't do them any favors on the Asian side right now, as far as the Asian market's concerned. There's a lot to consider here as well. Investors Business Daily came out with some interesting numbers on BYD. So the BYD company, if you guys haven't heard of them, it's another Chinese EV manufacturer that Warren Buffett actually bought in the very early days. And some people kind of scratch their heads on this as to why Warren Buffett will go after something like this rather than a Tesla, and rightfully so. I agree. Like, why is he going after something like BYD? But he's made over 500% on this investment right now already as it stands. Some interesting things to note here. Tesla on Saturday reported, like I said, a record first quarter for deliveries. BYD reported March sales on Sunday topping 100,000 in a month for the first time ever. That's alarming. Now, I'm not saying that Tesla is in trouble here, but competition is certainly stiffening. 100,000 sales from BYD. Nobody else is touching that. And I think this is coming out of left field for a little bit, and for maybe some investors, because we're focusing on some of the legacy companies such as Ford, GM, Toyota, some of those other ones. And there's been a lot of conversations with Lucid or Rivian. How can they catch up to Tesla? But now we have BYD that isn't really being talked about all that much. And Investors Business Daily put this up. Tesla versus BYD sales. The world's largest electric vehicle maker on April 12th reported quarter one, as we know, at 310,000. And, BYD came up over 100,000. And so that's a really staggering number. The growth there, I think, is certainly worth considering. Again, this isn't me saying that BYD is going to start taking over Tesla, but it does impact Tesla's growth and the rate at which they can grow. If more people are buying BYD cars in China and Asia, especially as they're all shutting down, that certainly makes an impact. BYD has signaled that it will conservatively sell 1.5 million new energy vehicles in 2022, or up to 2 million if supply issues ease. That's a wild number. This is according to Investor Business Daily. That would roughly triple last year's total NEV sales of 593,000. BYD has opened or will open 3 new factories in early 2022, boosting an annual capacity by another 500,000 vehicles. So for those of you who thought that Elon had such a great relationship with China, I think you have another thing coming. China wants to continue to support their own companies, their own, businesses within their own country. And while I'm sure it's exciting and they're not going to, shit on Elon for creating more Teslas or selling more Teslas, but this is significant, guys. Significant. That I don't think a lot of people are talking about. But let me know what you guys think. Is this something that you should be concerned about as a Tesla investor, or you're just like, no? And look, like I said, I don't want the biased opinions. Give me some real concrete evidence or an argument that says that you shouldn't be worried about something like this. Why shouldn't you be worried about BYD starting to take up market share in China? Is it because Texas and Berlin are already open and BYD certainly doesn't have any competition, isn't giving Tesla any competition in Europe or the US? Is that why? Or did I just make the argument up for myself? I feel like I gave you one. So I gave you guys a softball as far as that's concerned on Tesla. But yeah, I think that's a very interesting conversation to have, right? I mean, this is a company that I don't think anybody really saw coming, except for Warren Buffett, I guess. It's kind of like the guy's done this before. Wild, right? Very interesting point, D. Karma. Tesla stock always runs up before 10 or 15 days earnings report. Statistically, that's correct. So I'm glad you brought that point up. So historically, we have seen an average run on Tesla after they report sales for about 15% is the average move that we see up. However, that is when they beat sales expectations, which they did not. So I think that there's going to be an interesting dynamic here. It isn't always guaranteed that Tesla moves up when they miss sales expectations. And so historically, I think I want to say over the last 12 to 15 quarters, Tesla comes in and beats sales numbers, and the stock starts to move on an average of 15% between the sales the sales numbers release, and the earnings report. But this is different this time. And again, I'm not trying to be bearish. I'm just saying there's reason for caution. And I don't think it's one of those things where it's so easy to be like, yeah, let's just go all in. No problem. It's Tesla. Maybe they come in and surprise, but if they come in and miss sales expectations, they better have figured out a way to tighten up some things on the balance sheet, because then they could potentially miss earnings expectations as well, which would not be good. See some comments on here as far as what they would like to see for the split. JC says, what will the stock split be? Stock split be 5 or 10 to 1? I think 5 to 1 probably makes the most sense. If we look at what happened last time around, it's kind of like where it brought it back to around $200 a share. I think that's probably what I would expect. 10 to 1, maybe I could see it. I could see that happening, but I think 5 to 1 certainly makes sense. Let me see if there's any other different ones. 20 to 1, now bringing Tesla stock down around $50 a share. Yeah. Okay. Matt Dix says Tesla's definitely the leader. However, it's overvalued. I can only trade it, not invest in it, but that's just me. Yeah, look, there's something to be said for the fact that it is overvalued, from a fundamental standpoint. And there's a lot of arguments to be made as far as the growth here, because they are just explosively growing at a ridiculous rate, right? Mind-numbing speed is how fast they're growing. And so that's the counter argument to its valuation. And rightfully so. We've seen a lot of companies do that. NVIDIA is trading much higher than its price to earnings and its sales as well. But there's many arguments that you can make that NVIDIA is just going to continue to grow, and they're going to grow into that valuation. Tesla's going to grow into that valuation. I certainly believe that. How long is that going to take, though? And I think that's the question you start asking yourself when the stock's trading at over 100 times next year's earnings. It is kind of ridiculous when you look at those numbers. All right. I wanted to see if there's any other comments here on this. Really love the conversations we're having, guys. Danny Alvarado says 300K in 1 quarter, so about 1.3 by the end of the year. Yes, that's a pretty decent, and that's what I say. Like that's still an incredible number, right? Even though they missed expectations by a few thousand, it's not really like they just blew it, right? Like they really shit the bed on sales. So it isn't like they had a big miss. It's just that they still missed regardless. And are investors going to react accordingly as far as that's concerned? And I think tomorrow could be a rough day for Tesla. I got to be honest. I think tomorrow could be a rough day. Could we see a run back up into earnings? I think there's certainly the possibility of that, as I just kind of laid out the history regarding Tesla leading up to earnings, between sales and earnings. I don't think it's going to be as strong of a move as it has been in months past, or in quarters past, I should say. Again, if we take a look at this, you guys can take a look at the chart here. We've talked about this earlier in the show, but if you're just tuning in, I think that there's potential. There's a strong support here at $950 a share. So if it falls below 1,000, I think that's probably where it's headed. But it's very overheated on RSI. So the potential for this, or the risk reward here, isn't all that great from these levels, unless we see this kind of chill out and consolidate, which I'm okay with. I think that's certainly on the table. If it just consolidates, it doesn't move at all tomorrow, that's fine with me. But the risk reward here, I don't know if I really like. If you're just trying to buy into it tomorrow, I probably would hold off if it were me. And if it runs without you, it runs without you. But the risk reward doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense for my own risk tolerance. And you have to weigh that out for yourself. Interesting point here. Russia gas issue will speed up EV adoption. Enough room for BYD and Tesla and NIO. Maybe, but I don't think we're there yet. We don't have the infrastructure to speed up EV adoption. There's plenty of people that want EVs. The problem is that there isn't enough EVs out there to feed that demand. And the infrastructure just isn't there. Not yet. It will be. And you're right as far as that's concerned in the long term, but I don't think it is in the short term. You consider, this is also a good point that I think is worth chatting about. To the BYD conversation, if we look at BYD and how much they are actually growing, China has a ton of rare earth materials that are required to build these EVs. They have all the leverage as far as that's concerned. Most of the leverage. Let me back up. Most of the leverage as far as that's concerned. So if China wants to compete in the EV space, they have the ability to do so because of the access they have to rare earth materials like lithium and some of these other ones. So that's definitely a threat, I think, to the market share that Tesla can scoop up or take over in that space. Look, there's going to be plenty of room for not just Tesla, but many other car manufacturers to live in this space. but it certainly makes the argument against the speed of growth in which they can make in Asia anyway. When you're looking at BYD sales, those are wild numbers, absolutely wild numbers. I don't think anybody saw them coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, to kind of rival Tesla in the way that they are. I'm not saying that they don't have that possibility or they didn't have that growth potential in the long term, but the speed in which that they are growing is pretty wild. I mean, let me read this again. Let me find this my spot in this article here on just how BYD is growing. So let me see, 1.5 million. So BYD is adding significant EV capacity. The auto giant has signaled that it will conservatively, by the way, sell 1.5 million new energy vehicles in 2022, or up to 2 million if supply issues ease. That is insane. That would roughly triple last year's total NEV sales of 593,000. Tesla isn't even coming anywhere close to that. And that's wild. That's a wild number to me. So the adoption certainly there in China, and we're seeing that. The growth there and the way that they're cranking out vehicles is wild. That is an insane number that nobody's talking about. I wonder if we'll see that topic arise tomorrow on some of the other major networks, such as CNBC or what have you, because I think that is definitely a worth chatting about as well. I have Tom Nash coming on later in the week, by the way, guys. So make sure you guys are hitting that notification bell. So later this week, Tom Nash is going to be coming on the show. And I think this is a very important topic to talk about as far as Tesla's concerned. So would love to chat about that with him. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to get notified when I go live with Tom. I'm super pumped to have him on the show. Also, before we go any further, guys, if you guys want a watch list for me, if you're not part of the Chaos crew, I put out a watch list every single day before the market opens. 5 stocks for $5. $5 a month, you get 5 stocks before the market opens, and of just stocks that I think that are worth watching. So if you guys want that, you will also want access to our Discord group and all kinds of other goodies that come along with being part of the Chaos crew. Hit the join button next to subscribe, or go to ownthechaos.com if you can't see that join button. We'd love to have you guys as a part of the crew, and it's just a great way to support the channel. It's not breaking anybody's bank, right? But it's also providing a really good service. I always love to over deliver on my promises. So if you guys want to be a part of the crew, make sure you hit that join button next to subscribe. We'd love to have you there. BYD makes go-karts. They make a lot of them, though, apparently, Philip. I mean, that's still a lot. 2 million. 2 million. Yeah, appreciate it, Lexa. So Lexa is part of the crew. Great way to start the day. Always very active in the Chaos crew. Thanks so much. D-Commerce still remaining bullish on this. I believe $100 up tomorrow. That's for a prediction. We'll see. We'll see. I would love to talk about that more tomorrow. Giga grand opening will lead Tesla stock up for tomorrow for sure. Some more love about the Chaos crew. The 1D, 1D Lee. More than worth it. Great info given. Thanks so much. All good stuff. All good stuff. Okay. So that is the Tesla conversation. Some things to consider this week. So Monday, we got factory orders, durable goods, all that good stuff there. But then we also have the Fed meeting minutes that are going to be released on Wednesday. So that'll be very interesting because the next Fed meeting is going to be in May. So these Fed meeting minutes are basically going to kind of lay out the plan and what they're expecting to talk about, what moves they might make in May's meeting that we'll all be privy to. So these meeting minutes are not going to be the FOMC meeting is not going to be publicized like it normally is. It's not an official meeting that won't take place until May. But these meeting minutes is kind of like laying it out, letting us know what the expectation is going to potentially be, and we could be hearing some very interesting things from the Fed, which could impact Tesla's stock as well as many others. So if the Fed comes in and is still crazy hawkish and starts talking about a 0.5 point rate hike in May, that's going to be very significant and going to impact probably a lot of growth stocks as well. You know, the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing a huge move in the S&P and in the Qs in particular. Some of these high growth tech names have done extremely well, but we have the FOMC meeting coming up. And if we take a look at the SPY right now, we can see it had a little bit of a pullback over the last couple of trading days, but it's had a monster move from its 409 lows and then touched up here at around 462. So we get some hawkish talk from the Fed. I think that we're in store for a lot more volatility. If they come in and are a little bit more dovish, however, I think that maybe we could start to see some moves to the upside. So that's also going to impact Tesla stock as well. They come in and are very hawkish. These high-tech growth names probably aren't going to do so well. So staying in those value names are going to continue to be something that I would be worth taking a look at. Something like a Bank of America, perhaps. The energy trade is still very much there. The Transocean trade that I'm personally in, starting to shape up very nicely. You could take a look at the Marathon Oil. If you're more privy to the ETFs, take a look at the XLE, for example. That's also looking really good as well. Or the OIH, which I think is probably the one that has a lot more upside, considering that this is one that's lagged quite a bit. And you can take a look at this chart, man. This chart looks fantastic on the daily. We draw some of these trend lines here. You can see this beautiful trend on the OIH. I mean, absolutely beautiful, following that daily trend. And this looks like it's primed to continue to go up. And look, we've talked about this on Thursday, right? Thursday, we heard about the SPR, 1 million barrels a day being released from the SPR for the next 6 months. So 180 million barrels total from the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and how that's not going to solve anything. If they come up with a solution between now and then, okay, fine. But doesn't look like that's going to come about. Even if the Russia-Ukraine situation were to get resolved tomorrow, that's not going to help oil at all, because sanctions are going to still remain in place. Nobody's going to all of a sudden forgive Vladimir Putin and Russia for all the crimes that they've committed. So the sanctions are going to remain in place, and that's going to continue to put pressure on oil. So oil is going to continue to go up. I think energy is going to continue to rise despite, going into the summer months. We're going to see record travel, in my opinion. So oil consumption is going to continue to be there. And as EV sales are really struggling as far as the supply chain is concerned, that's not going to get much relief either. So there's a lot of reasons to be bullish on oil and energy in general. So during the FOMC minutes when they get released, if there's a hawkish tone here, I think that we still see, I still think that's going to be good for energy. So you're not going to want to abandon the energy trade or any of the value stocks that have gotten you to this point from the start of the year. If you guys have been paying attention to the channel, hopefully you have. We've talked about this, how the value trade is going to continue to be in play here, so long as the Fed remains hawkish, and there's some reasons to believe that they might be. So keep that in consideration for Wednesday. Initial jobless claims, as we know, expected 200,000 to 202,000 during the week prior, and wholesale trade inventories on Friday as well. So those are the expectations for the week. I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot to really, go over for the week. I guess we'll just have to see how tomorrow plays out. There's always news to be talked about, guys, and that's where I will let you know that I'll be live tomorrow at 3:45 p.m. Eastern time to go over some of the things that have gone on in the week or the day tomorrow. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to get notified when I go live at 3:45 p.m. Eastern time. And guys, that's going to do it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments below if you're watching this at a later time. I would love to get your thoughts on the potential catalysts here, or some of the things to be concerned about. Are you a Tesla investor that is otherwise bullish, but these are some things that are concerning you? I would love to hear from you as far as that's concerned. If you aren't worried about this, why aren't you worried about this? Give me some arguments. I'd love to get into the weeds with this in some of the comments with you guys. So make sure you put in comments down below. Again, if you want to be part of the Chaos crew, get your daily watch list as well. Hit the join button next to subscribe, or go to ownthechaos.com and get your watch list where I put it out every single morning. 5 stocks. I give you a great fundamental breakdown as well as technical analysis on each one of those that I think are worth watching throughout that day. And guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow at 3:45 p.m. Eastern time. That'll do it for me. Bye.